Good afternoon, everyone. I hope this drone is not participating in the race. We just came back from watching the drone race, which was very impressive, and I have to say, good welcome for me when I came here. Honorable Vice Chancellor, SV Kodaradiji, Visitor, Convener, Deputy Director, faculty, and students. It's very heartening. So whenever I come to a educational institution, it always takes me back 30 years back when I was a student, like many of you sitting over there. So it brings me back those memories. So it's very heartening. So I think in today's world, as the Vice Chancellor was saying, the lines are blurring between different disciplines. So if you look at, if you are a computer science graduate, you're a business graduate, you're a mechanical engineering graduate, it doesn't matter. But tomorrow, you need to be ready for what you will face once you graduate out of this institution. One thing I have to say again about this institution is actually when I stepped in, I was really impressed, like within 5 years under the leadership of your Vice Chancellor, how this institution has grown to, I think, 11,000 students, many different faculties, including computer science, business, mechanical, whatnot, right? All different faculties, and just as the Vice Chancellor was speaking, I think ranking number one in the country for a particular category in 5 years, again, is very impressive. So that's a big applause for that. And again, something very close to my heart before I go into the actual core of what I want to tell you today is, when I see an educational institution like this, in a region like this, it's very heartening to me. Because to me, India's future is all about not just the tier 1 cities, it's also about the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So when I see an institution, a world-class institution like this, in a place like this, it's to me, it's fantastic. No less than any other institution out there in the country with world-class standards. So again, a round of applause for that. And the reason for that is we also have, a very large tier 4 data center with global standards, not too far away from here, probably a 15-minute drive. I definitely welcome, some of the students, to come and take a tour of our facility and really experience how data centers and cloud work today and how the world is controlled and managed by data. So, as I was saying, the lines are blurring between different disciplines. So it's very important. I think data. I'll take a few minutes to talk about the data and the relevance of data and how important it is and the kind of role it plays in the future of the world. I mean, in the current situation in the world today, and also in the future where the world is going. So, a little bit of a statistics, right? Indian economy today is roughly around 3.5 trillion economy, and then it's predicted that by 2027 it's going to be almost 7, if not 5. I mean, there are optimists who say that it can grow up to 7 trillion. What does that mean to become a third largest economy in the world? This economy is data driven, primarily data driven. So it's digitized, right? So it's if you think about it, especially for the business students and the computer science students, think about that. What's the opportunity? What's the opportunity out there? Today, the data that's created globally is about 180 zettabytes. A zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. So you just imagine putting the numbers or number of zeros to that number. I can't even count. So that's the size of the data economy and the digital economy that's out there for grabs. And for you students to analyze what that means and where the future lies and the kind of opportunities that it would open for you once you graduate out of this fantastic institution. The other thing, I think this 180 zettabytes of data is contributed from 5 billion people globally, right? So some other stats about data. I mean, think about all of you sitting in this room are very very probably I would say savvy of using social media, right? Instagram, Facebook, Google, etc., etc. So I was talking about 180 zettabytes. Just go back some 10 to 12 years. Let's say 2010. Just imagine the size of. Can anybody guess in this room? Guess if we are about 180 zettabytes today, what it was 12 years ago? Just take a guess. Random guess. Anybody can throw out a number. 100? No. Sorry? Don't Google. I can see people Googling there already actively. No, actually two zettabytes. So 12 years back, 280. So see the kind of digitization that's being created, the kind of economy it has enabled over this last decade. And if you just extrapolate that over the next 10 years, it's going to be amazing, and India is going to play a phenomenal role in that. And I'm telling you, I think this is not new, but all of you know. But I think the next 3 decades are going to be India decades. India is going to take a leadership position, especially in the digital economy. I think you see a lot of things happening out there. And all the global MNCs, especially in the social media, India is, I think today, if not number one, already a number two kind of a consumer already. I think over the next decade, it will surpass and it will become number one in almost all categories. So again, if you drill down from this, 180 zettabytes to where is all this coming from? I mean, imagine how many hours of Netflix video is being streamed in a single day, right? 4 lakh hours of video is being streamed in one day on Netflix. So just imagine if you can kind of compare those parallels to a YouTube or a Facebook video, etc. Number of Google searches, right? 8.5 billion Google searches in a day. So it's mind-boggling, right? If you think about the kind of power the social media has. But unfortunately, there are a few things that I want to mention. India's role in this, why we are the biggest or almost the biggest contributor to the social media in terms of data creation. Unfortunately, the content that's being created by Indians in India, 80 to 90% of that is stored outside the country. It's extremely important to bring all of that back. India's data is India's national treasure, right? There's nothing more critical today or important than data. You lose money, you lose gold, you can always earn it back. You lose your critical data, you might never get it back, you might never get the credibility back. So it's extremely, extremely important. And the reason I'm saying all of this is and going into the numbers is the kind of opportunities that it opens for you to be graduates out here in a multidisciplinary fashion, right? Imagine a business graduate, be it supply chain, be it journalism, no matter economics, marketing, the fundamental, foundation for this is, pretty much data, right? And obviously, computer science graduates. I'll go back 30 years. I mean, today, this generation, I think, is I would say, gifted in a way. When I was your age, 30 years back, it was a privilege to even see a computer and even touch a computer. The first time I touched a computer is roughly, 30 years back. When I was studying, we used to get time in a computer lab for about 30 minutes in a week, or at most an hour in a week. The first program that I have written I still remember was in Fortran, the language. I don't think it's still around, and I don't think you teach that. Fortran and Pascal was the first the programming language that I used, and you have to see the first day when I compiled a program. It took me a month to even write a simple program that says "Hello World," and when I compiled that first program that just says "Hello World" in the compiler, my happiness was out of bounds. So that was how happy I was, and it took me a month to kind of fail on that multiple times and get a simple program to compile that just says "Hello World." So I think in a way today, the compute power, the compute devices are at your fingertips, right? So it makes you much more powerful, many times powerful than what we were 30 years back or even 20, 15 years back. So today, the scenario has changed and made you very powerful. The decision-making tools are in your hand. So it's extremely important to leverage this luxury, if you will, to turn this out into an opportunity and create opportunities for yourselves out there. So when I compiled this program, right, I stored it on a small floppy drive. I think it's not even MBs, it's in kilobytes, right? So thinking about the evolution of this data storage, I think the generation before me, where the data used to be stored in punch cards, and then it came to tapes, and then floppy disks, and then CDs, DVDs, SATA, SAS, SSDs, which is also stored in pen drives, and then eventually, and of course there was a mainframe running in parallel to that, to all these years or decades. And then today it is transformed to cloud. You don't hold anything, you don't store anything physically with you. It's all in the cloud, pretty much. You don't need to store anything on any of the compute device that you operate, right? You can store pretty much everything on the cloud. And this cloud has grown to a point where today the opportunities, again, it creates is humongous. I think the kind of opportunities that the cloud will create in the next decade, 2 decades, I think will be unknown for what we have seen, not just in a country like India, but even what we have seen in US. I think that's how it's going to take India, based on the number of job opportunities it's going to create. And when I say cloud, don't think just computer science graduates, marketing, business, again, all different disciplines. So that's again, it goes back to the point. I think interdisciplinary skills are going to be extremely important. I think each and every one of you need to design your careers and the courses that you take around it. If you have an opportunity to select different electives, I highly encourage you to select some of these interdisciplinary electives that will make you ready for the future, right? Even if you are a computer science graduate, if you have an opportunity to do a course in marketing, by all means, go ahead and do that. Because today, without a marketing skill, no matter whatever graduate you are, I think it's definitely a drawback. So it's always important to gain that perspective as well. Similarly, vice versa. So this annual cloud revenue that I was talking about, right? Globally, annually, take a guess, right? Again, the kind of revenues it's creating globally is almost 200 billion just in 1 year. Just imagine the number, right? So how much it's contributing to the economy, especially to the cloud and the cloud services industry. So all of this, right? And when we bring this big data, I just mentioned a few minutes back that all of this data is 80 to 90% of the data that India is creating, especially on social media platforms, is being stored outside the country. So it's extremely important for India to create a data privacy and a data localization bill, which is already in its draft form. It's being worked by the government of India for the last 5-6 years. We as an organization and being participants, a key participant in many of the industry forums, we give our feedback for the data center policy, cloud policy of India, and especially the data privacy policy of India. The moment this Privacy India localization and privacy bill comes in, every single multinational company who is storing data outside the country will have to store or bring the data, or have to store at least a copy of the data within the country. And the kind of opportunities, again, the moment that happens, all of that digital economy that is kind of going is currently outside the country will be brought back into the country. It will need, see, globally, there are about 8,000 data centers that pretty much run the world. Out of 8,000 data centers, take a guess how many data centers are in India? Sorry? 7? Yeah, I mean, you're almost correct. About 100, but really about 20, 25 really contributing or making a presence. So see, I mean, look at the opportunity. Look at the opportunity that it's creating, right? US has almost between 2 and 3,000. And Indian, economy basically just the the upper middle class sector, or even I would say, let's not even go there in terms of earnings, but even if you take the number of people between 20 and 35 years in India, the population is more than the US totally combined. So with that kind of population, if US is creating or has almost 2 to 3,000 data centers, how many data centers India should have, right? And how much cloud economy, how much data economy India should generate. So it's huge. So I think, again, I encourage all of you to kind of internalize what I'm talking about and the kind of opportunities that it will enable. And once the moment you are ready to plunge out there into the world, I think it will open up, many opportunities. Today you might be, I've seen many, people who actually have done or graduated in mechanical engineering or even computer science engineering, going into a marketing or a different kind of a business kind of a domain. So it's extremely important. You do not know what's out there and how your interest might change and what kind of opportunities it might knock your door tomorrow. So, basically what I want to conclude by saying is that the data economy is huge. There's huge responsibility on India to introduce this data localization and data privacy bill, to bring all the precious data, which is the treasure of the country, back into the country. And all of you out there, leveraging this opportunity and analyzing this opportunity, leveraging this opportunity and creating opportunities for yourselves. I'm sure out of the 200 people who are in this auditorium, I can just even imagine at least 25 to 50 of you running your own companies 2 to 3 years from now. And guess what? Data will be in the center of it, right? So with that, I would like to again emphasize the multidisciplinary careers and focus that you should have through the years. I don't know if all of you are in second, third, or fourth year of your degrees, but I think it's extremely important to focus on that. Work with your faculty members, design your courses that suit your interests and match your future interests once you graduate from here. And last but not the least, I want to thank the management and the Vice Chancellor for giving me this opportunity and inviting me to this world-class institute. Thank you.